Hi, this is Nahid, and this is the second class on the Enneagram in our Enneagram series at Aspire. And what we are going to talk about today is how the Enneagram shows us our path for personal and spiritual growth. And I'm going to approach the model a little bit differently than maybe most of the books that you read. I'm going to give you my take on the model, but with the caveat that my take is my take and it's just based on my own experience. So you'll get my take on it, but then I'm also going to refer you to books written by experts that have been working with this tool far longer than I have, up to 35 years or so. So here is our Enneagram model, the way it was mapped with personality types. So we see that there's several points, and the points are given names. And there's also some triads. So you have an Anger Triad and a Fear Triad and what they call an Image Triad. And again, I don't know if you can see my pointer on the video, so I'm going to try doing it with a laser pointer. So here we have the Enneagram, and I've got my laser pointer circling it just in case you can't see it. And if you'll notice on the Enneagram, you have many triads. So besides the triads that are formed by the 3, 9, and 6 numbers, you also have a triad with 8, 9, and 1, which is the Anger Triad, and 7, 6, and 5, which is the Fear, and 2, 3, and 4, which is the Image. And then each of these personality types are given a name. So perfectionist, mediator, boss, giver, performer, etc. I'm going to go over this a little bit, but I'm going to do it kind of in a different way. So here we have the Enneagram. What I want to really talk to you about is kind of the theory behind it so that you understand why it's such a deep tool and it's not like other personality assessments. The Enneagram, there's a theory to it, and there's always this argument that they give all the masters about whether your Enneagram type is changeable. And different experts, of course, will always say different things. But the most recent thinking is that your type is formed partly from nature. So you were partly kind of born with certain things that you're attuned to, but then the environment that you are born into, you interact with, and because you interact with the environment, that also shapes your type. So the way the theory works is that when you come into the world, each type actually has something that they're kind of attuned to. So the 1 is attuned, and each type comes in, because this is, again, a spiritual growth model, then the thinking is that each type comes in as a baby still very spiritually connected. When you're born, you don't really know that you're different from the rest of the world, so you feel very connected to spiritual energy. And you can apply this to your religious beliefs, or you can apply this to more New Age spiritual beliefs, but whatever you think of as, or whoever you think of as God or the universe or that energy, the thinking is that you're still very connected to that when you're a baby. And you come in sort of genetically attuned to be specifically cognizant, or to pay attention, or to really find joy in a specific aspect of this connection. So for example, a number 1, they find specific joy in goodness. So they see the goodness in the world, and they're specifically attuned to that. The 2 is specifically attuned to the caring between people and just how beautiful that is. The 3 is, so you want to imagine these babies, right? And as they grow, just they love that sweetness that comes with goodness and with caring. Efficacy is, wow, I can do something. Isn't that cool? The empowerment that you feel when you're able to accomplish something. 4 see the deep beauty and mystery in things. 5s are fascinated mentally with ideas and knowledge and interesting things that happen in their head. 6s love that feeling of protection that you feel when you're with a strong, big person, and you know that humans are, keep each other safe in the world. 7s are attuned to possibility, all the different things that you can sample in life. There's joy everywhere. 8s are attuned to vitality, the sense of being fully alive. And 9s see this unity and harmony. They seem to sense the connectedness that everyone has to each other, and they find great joy in that. So we come into the world and we have certain things that we find joy in. And I want to let you know that if you read other Enneagram books, you're going to see other words that are slightly different put here, but the general concept is the same. So whatever words different people choose, that each number comes in somewhat attuned to a specific aspect of this spiritual energy that is especially special to them, I guess I would say. So as the babies grow and they're still very young, they're still very, very spiritually connected. So if we kind of go around the circle again, and you may not remember all the words, but 1s who were connected to goodness, they get a special joy from making things good and perfect. So imagine that you begin to notice that as you put things, let's say you're playing with cups or you're putting things in the dishwasher, it can be any kind of mundane thing, but what you notice is that, wow, you can line everything up and it's perfect. And it just, how amazing it is when everything just fits together perfectly or works perfectly or is done right. And you continue to see the goodness in the world when things are done right and done well. And when people are being good and doing good, and you continue to watch this and observe this and get joy from this. 2s really get special joy from loving interactions. So just that sweetness of loving interactions between two people and just how special and wonderful that is. 3s get special joy from accomplishments. So they, their 3s are the ones that, they're first able to sit up or stand up, and it's just so joyful to feel the power of being able to do these things. 4s get special joy from experiencing the deep beauty in the world. So they are very moved by seeing a piece of art or by looking at nature. So what they see or maybe a piece of music, what they hear, they can be moved very strongly emotionally by things of beauty in the world. And they have a deep emotional response to things in the world. 5 gets excited, kind of like the opiates firing in your brain with all the great ideas that come up in your head. And so 5s get a special joy from all the ideas that come in their head and the knowledge. And they just want more and more knowledge and learning. And just that special, that special feeling you get, or that charge that you get when you suddenly understand something new. A 6 gets special joy from having the safety of having a strong protector. So imagine that feeling of comfort that you have as a child when you're cuddled up in your parents' arms. Maybe you're getting a book read to you or something at night, but you feel completely safe, like all is well in the world. 7s get special joy from experiencing a little bit of everything in life. So imagine a little 7 child in an ice cream shop, and it's 32 flavors, and they're going to get a little taste of every single flavor. And what's exciting to them are all the different little taste things, all the different options that they have that they can taste. And an 8 gets special joy from feeling alive and active physically. So an 8 is a very energetic type that feels joy from just being in his or her body. So imagine feeling strength and vitality and the power of your physical body, maybe when you're doing something like running or climbing or jumping or splashing in water. And nines get a special joy from feeling the togetherness of a group. So imagine how you feel when you are maybe in a church or with a group of people around a campfire and you're all singing a song together, and suddenly you notice that just everyone's together and everything's better when everything's together. So when the group sings a song and different people are harmonizing with each other, all the notes sound so much better together than if you could only see one note at a time. And nines are especially attuned to that. So when you're a young child, you grow into, really getting joy from these certain aspects of life. And that's the way the story goes anyway. So the story continues and you get a little bit older, but at some point between 3 and 5, reality sets in and you start disconnecting from that spiritual energy, and you kind of have a fear or breaking away or disappointment or recognition. And of course that can take many forms as we're children. So, starting from 3 to 5, we start realizing that we don't always get things the way we want in life, and things aren't working quite right all the time. So kind of what hits ones over the head is, oh my gosh, the world isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. And some people even don't care about getting things right. Twos have this feeling that my needs are really too much for others to handle because I keep trying to get love and people aren't responding to me and they're not always there for me when I need them. I must be unlovable. And a 3 is, gosh, as soon as I accomplish something and it's over, nobody pays attention to me anymore. Nobody really is interested in me unless I do something bigger or better. So, I'm not really liked for who I am. What I'm liked for is sort of what I do. So I need to keep doing bigger and better things because nobody really cares about who I am. And 4s keep going, wow, I'm missing something. I'm not like everybody else. How come they get that and I don't? How come they're that way and I'm not? I must be different. There's something wrong with me. I just feel things deeper than everybody else. If I'm not like everyone else, others can't see what I see in the world. They don't get me or experience life. So who am I? Really? 5s start feeling others want things from me and they don't understand me, and then they begin to retreat into their head because the world in my head is more of a sanctuary. 6s, the protectors around me are doing a bad job, and this world is a dangerous place. So maybe that protector isn't always there to read me that book. Maybe they're not even at home all the time when I feel afraid. 7s, if I stop enjoying life, I'll get trapped with bad feelings. I don't really like experiencing bad feelings. I only want to experience the good stuff. I have to keep going and getting more good stuff, and I don't want to miss out on anything good. And 8s, if I'm not strong enough, others can hurt me. It's not safe to be vulnerable. And 9s, if I share my opinion or go against the group, I'm going to ruin this beautiful thing that we all have together. And I want to have this beautiful thing. So we get these messages, and we get these messages partly from our environment because we're disappointed in some way. But everyone's going to be disappointed in a multitude of ways once they come into contact with the world, because the world's not a perfect place, and it doesn't exist to serve each one of our individual needs. So we all have some disappointment, but our disappointment tends to be related to what we come into the world attuned to, or at least that's kind of the way the Enneagram story goes. Now, the Enneagram is filled with triads. So then you think about these realizations that we have. There are 3 triads. There's an Anger Triad, and the Anger Triad, in the Anger Triad, they get mad about it. So the 8s and 9s and 1s form the Anger Triad. And so 1s are mad that the world isn't perfect. And of course, anger isn't a very perfect emotion, so they tend to push that anger down, but it does come out as resentment. 9s are mad that they have to give themselves up in order to keep the peace and do so much work to keep the peace inside, but they completely bury that anger, but they still have it. And 8s experience anger more directly, and so they tend to become really strong, and they let that anger out a lot. They're very in touch with it. And they can really have a strong impact. They can scare people away with that anger. So there's kind of an anger triad. There's also a fear triad. So in the fear triad, the experience is more, oh, wow, there's bad in the world and I have to protect myself. So 5s see the bad coming from people wanting to take some of their energy away, and so they retreat into their heads to protect themselves. 6s actually kind of more in the classical sense of the world are afraid of the danger in the world, so they kind of go into fight or flight or freeze mode, and they're always thinking about what could go wrong and what they should be doing to prepare for what should go wrong. And the 7s kind of bury their fear. So, kind of in all of these triads, there's one type that really expresses the feeling, and then another that kind of buries it, and then another that's kind of in conflict about it. So 7s just completely, they don't even realize that they're feeling fear, but they don't like to be in touch with negative emotions, especially fear. And then we have the Lost Triad. So sometimes people call this the image triad because what these 3, the 2, 3, and 4, have lost is a part of themselves. They're really grieving the loss of themselves. So 2s feel that they can't be themselves because their needs are too much for people to handle. So they try to be something else other than themselves that people will like. 3s feel that they're not good at this themselves. They are only as good as what they do in the world. So they get wrapped up in what they do, and they begin to define themselves for what they do. 4s actually express this loss of who they are, and they go into a desperate search for who they really are, and they separate themselves from people because they keep trying to find what's unique and special about themselves, so they really can get a feel for who they really are as unique and special in the world. So here we are again, and we have our child. So now we have that moment of disappointment. So I'll go back to this slide. So we have the disappointment, we have the disconnection, and we feel this pain from disconnection. And so the idea of the Enneagram is once we feel this pain of disconnection, we forget everything we knew spiritually from being connected spiritually. And so then what we have to do, we keep wanting it back. And what every number does is in its own way, it desperately tries to get back that wonderful, blissful connection that they used to have. And because they're attuned to one specific thing, they tend to try to do it through that one thing that they are attuned to. So, for example, if we look at the Anger Triad, they have the one thing that they're attuned to. They feel that there's something wrong with the world. They're angry about the world. So they go into a mode of having to fix it. And so they come up with certain types of survival beliefs. So the belief system of the 8 is, I have to be the strong and the most powerful. I can't be vulnerable. I have to be strong so nobody can hurt me. And I'm also especially suspicious of anyone hurting other people, so I might be a little bit of a vigilante. And I'm going to be very protective of people who are my people. And I'm very suspicious of other people. But I'm the strong person, and I get in people's faces, and I have no problem getting in people's faces because nobody's going to get the better of me. So as an 8, I'm sort of angry about the bad in the world, and I am going to stand up to it. Now the 9 is angry, but they're the ones that bury it. So the way they fix the world is they keep trying to get that peace back. And the way they get the peace back is if they speak up They think every time I speak up, I create conflict, and they don't want any conflict, so they tend to disappear, and they become really other-focused, and they tend to lose their sense of self because they're only thinking about what other people want, and they get lost in other people because they so like that connection and everybody being connected to each other that they keep seeking that connection by, I guess, sort of falling in to other people. And they completely kind of forget about themselves and who they are. And so they keep looking outside of themselves. And that's another thing about this journey, is it's kind of a journey back to yourself. So we have the disconnection. We're desperately looking for that spiritual connection again, but we tend to look outside ourselves for it. So 8s don't look for the strength. They're suspiciously looking at people on the outside, and they're radiating their anger out. 9s are looking for that peace by falling into other people outside of them. And 1s are angry because the world is not this perfect place, and so they keep trying to make things perfect. Now, how they focus that, they may try to make themselves perfect, or they may try to make other people perfect, or they may try to make the world perfect by getting involved in a cause. So now we look at the Fear Triad, and the mode here, the survival beliefs, are more about how to protect myself, right? Because the main emotion is fear. So 6s are more direct about it. This is, I have to do something. And so, again, they begin to look outside of themselves for some kind of protector. And sometimes 6s will latch on to a powerful person or cause, and they'll become extremely loyal to that person or cause. So they'll be called a loyalist. Sometimes they'll actually keep over-preparing themselves by being very courageous and facing their fears. And so they won't look very afraid because they're practicing courage to protect themselves from being afraid. But the 6s are kind of constantly seeking a strong protector. Now the 5s, they retreat into their heads. To them, their head is the safest place, and all the people outside in the world, they're kind of invasive. So 5s are more afraid of other people invading their space, and so they create this world in their head, and they live in that world. And they just don't really engage very much with the rest of the world. And then 7s do kind of the opposite. So they run away from themselves, and they run to all the happy things in life. So a 7 will run to a party, or they'll run to another party, and then maybe they'll go shopping, or maybe they'll go out to eat. But they're always doing something fun with somebody else, and they keep running away, and running away from themselves, and facing what they're running away from is all the negative feelings inside them. So they don't really like to resolve issues or face issues inside them. So while a 5 retreats into themselves and a 7 retreats out of themselves, the 6 is kind of, they're in themselves, but they're looking for that protector outside of themselves. Okay, now let's look at the Lost Triad. So the Lost Triad, again, they've lost themselves. So they're looking to find themselves again they're looking to find what they're missing by not being themselves. So the 2s feel that they can't be themselves because people won't love them. And, for 2s, caring was the most precious thing. So 2s are looking for caring. So what 2s do is they go out caring for everybody else, but they're kind of doing it in a manipulative way, because they're really caring for other people so that they can make themselves indispensable, because they need to get that caring themselves, and they're afraid to let out all their needs, all their real needs, or to be themselves, to be needy, or to be seen as needy. So the only way they can get into relationships with other people in their minds is to be the helper, or to be the one that's helping, or to be the one that's indispensable. So they kind of maintain those connections through helping people. A 3 is somewhat similar, except for them, it's not so much about relationships, it's about feeling valuable in the world. And a 3, identifies with doing what they do. So if I do this, and they might collect accomplishments or certificates that they put all over the world, or they look good. Sometimes people call 3 the chameleon, because whatever it is that anybody important to them needs, they become that person. Not necessarily to be in relationship with that person or to get love from that person, but to feel valued. So 3 stop being themselves and they lose touch with themselves because they're trying to be that person that whatever their group of shared values would value. And what a 4 does is go on this search for themselves. And they have this profound sense of longing and this melancholy and a lot of emotion, and they identify with their feelings. So sometimes 4s will think that they are their feelings, and they'll have these really, really deep emotions, and they'll feel like if they ride the wave of those emotions, because remember, 4s are very touched by things like art and beauty, so they're very comfortable with their emotions, especially their melancholy emotions, and they'll go into those emotions, seeing those emotions as maybe who they really are. So this is the journey of the Enneagram. It's that we're tuned to something specific that we really love in life, and then we notice it's missing in life, and then we go on a journey to find it, but we're looking outside of ourselves for it, and we're looking in the wrong place. And so ultimately, it's a journey back to yourself. So the journey could take years, of course, could take a whole lifetime. Apparently, that's what people do in this life, is go on their journey, and eventually, though, they finally get it, and they come back to themselves. And so they finally come back to a spiritual connection again, and they get back what it was that they were missing. And they always get it back in a very paradoxical way. So let's start again with the Anger Triad. So the Anger Triad learns to trust the world more in a certain type of way. So the 8 begins to understand that the most courageous of all ways to be is to show your vulnerability. And they begin to learn how compelling it is to be vulnerable, and they begin to allow themselves to be more vulnerable in the world. And as a result of being more vulnerable, they experience even more vitality and aliveness, because they experience kind of a full range of emotions. And it's not just the anger that they feel or the powerful feelings that they feel, but they start feeling the gentler and the sweeter emotions as well. And they become even more alive as a result of feeling their full range of emotions. And because they're willing to be more vulnerable and they find that it doesn't take away from their strengths, they also become extremely compelling leaders. Whereas before they might have been strong leaders, but they might have been a little bit more intimidating. Once they hit this level of spiritual growth, they're not as intimidating. And they're amazingly compelling, though. That force of their personality is still extremely compelling. 9s basically find themselves. They start learning that they're a person in there, and they start getting to know themselves again, and they find who they want. And what they learn is when they actually stand for who they are, then they really are able to connect with others. Whereas before they were completely disappearing and nobody could get to them or truly connect to them. So when they become themselves and show themselves to the world and stand for who they are and what they believe in, instead of everybody running away and instead of it creating a bunch of conflicts, they actually can experience true connection with others. And in those connections, they get back to that sense of unity that they treasure so much. And what happens with 1s is, instead of looking at perfection literally, they begin to see the perfection and imperfection. And they begin to see that every moment really does hold true perfection. And that you could look at, a flower arrangement where some of the flowers are out of order or kind of a little bit messy, and you can look at that messiness, and then you can still find patterns and beauty and organization in the chaos. And it's such a relief to one that they don't have to be responsible for this anymore. And so they feel a lightness and they can relax into enjoying the perfection in the world again. What happens with, let's go to the Fear Triad now. So in the Fear Triad, essentially the transformation is I actually have everything it takes to be safe. And they have to, again, journey back to themselves and become their full selves in order to feel the safety. So for sixes, again, it's more direct and straightforward. But sixes' path to spiritual growth is partly building their own confidence, that they don't really necessarily need someone outside themselves to make the decisions for them, that they can make their own decisions, that they're very well equipped to protect themselves in the world. And so they have to start really kind of growing in and feeling confident in their own abilities. That's part of it. But then there's the spiritual part of it, which is I'm not just my body. So there may be threats to my body, but that doesn't mean that, my whole self is in danger. So that's a pretty highly evolved spiritual way of thinking, but it's a faith that sixes develop that really settles them down and takes away some of that worry and anxiety and just helps them find their grounding in the world. Fives who have been retreating into their mind have been doing it because they feel like they have limited energy and resources, and they feel like connecting with others will deplete them even more. So their fear is more that their energy and resources will be drained. So when fives transform, kind of the way they transform is they start sharing their thoughts and ideas with others. And they realize that when they connect with others, there's kind of a synergy that happens, and they can actually get more energy from sharing what they have with others. And sevens are the ones that are always rushing around for the next experience, to the next experience, to the next experience. So they might not even fully experience what they've got. So it's kind of like, I love this piece of cake, I want it. And then they get the piece of cake and they might take a couple bites. They don't even finish the cake because then they're on to the next treat, which is a brownie over there. Or then they're on to the next party. So they might do 3 parties in a night because they can't choose one. So for sevens, the journey back to themselves is the journey back to joy is right there. They don't have to go chasing after joy. There actually is joy wherever they are. I mean, they're such naturally joyful people that they can create joy in every ordinary moment, and that even there's a bit of joy in the sadder emotions, like sadness. So because there can be love in sadness. So there's a lot of, for sevens, sort of settling into the present and letting go of having to chase after things and realizing that everything they need is around them. Okay, and now we'll go to the Lost Triad. So these are the types that have lost part of themselves or feel that have lost the ability to be themselves. So as 2 finds themselves, what 2s have to do is honor their own needs and to really realize that their needs are just like everybody else's needs, and that they can get their needs met. So when 2s start focusing on taking care of themselves, kind of like the oxygen mask on the plane, when they get their own needs met first, that they actually get better relationships. Because when they don't allow their own needs to be met, their relationships aren't really as good as they could be, because there's too much manipulation in the relationships. There's neediness in the relationship, whether it's spoken or not. And there's this kind of demeanor that 2s have where they won't ever let anybody else have the upper hand in terms of being the giver, right? 2s get really panicky if someone else is giving them more than they were giving the other person. So once they start learning to receive, then they can actually receive love. And for the first time, they actually experience that caring that they have always treasured so much. Now for 3s feel such an emptiness inside when they connect with themselves, with the who they are instead of the what they do. But for threes, they have to learn that who they are is the most amazing accomplishment. So again, it's a journey back to self. And they have to let go of what they do and sort of find who they are, kind of be okay with who they truly are. And once they get there, they really realize how amazing just being themselves is, with accomplishments or no accomplishments, that the actual physical accomplishments are just mere dressing. They're not the true thing. And who they are as people, each human being, is an amazing accomplishment. And so as they relax into that, then they actually can accomplish, because instead of the frenzied activity that threes normally put out, because one accomplishment's not enough, they just have to go on to the next one and to the next one and next one, they tend to settle in and focus on the things that maybe they actually enjoy and care most about. And paradoxically, their accomplishments become much more masterful because they are actually taking their time and truly enjoying what they're doing. They also become great mentors to others, and they're able to empower and inspire others to accomplish great things as well. And last, we get to fours. And what fours have to settle into is somewhat like sevens. So while sevens have to sit still and realize that there's joy in each ordinary moment, and ones have to settle down and see the perfection in each moment, what fours have to realize is that it doesn't have to be more beautiful to be beautiful. And so a four might see a painting and just not think it's quite beautiful enough, and then go on to another one, and to another one, and to another one. And what a four needs to do is maybe settle down and look at something so ordinary as an old hat or a pile of laundry or some dirty dishes, and actually look at it and see that there's beauty in that, and really see the beauty all around them. And then that translates into, oh, I'm just me, but that's okay, because I'm still special just as me. And then they stop trying to make themselves special, and they realize that mundane and ordinary is special, and I don't have to be unique or special or do anything different. I can just be who I am. And so that's the path, again, coming back to yourself. So that was my best understanding of all of this. I really didn't start with the basics because I wanted you to see the spiritual journey. I wanted you to see kind of the journey that each type takes to kind of come back to themselves. And the reason I want you to see that is because of the way we're going to be using the Enneagram at Aspire is to complement your journey, whatever it is. And some of you are already on a spiritual journey. So that's why you can see at its very core how it hits the spiritual journey. But you can use the Enneagram at any level, and that's kind of the beauty of it being such a simple model. You can use it at that deep spiritual level, but you can also use it at a very surface level. So if you wanted to learn more, there's a bunch of books out there that you can read, and here are a few that I recommend. So Enneagram Made Easy. I hope you can see my pointer kind of circling this book. The Enneagram Made Easy is a really simple book, but it's a great place to start because the Enneagram is a very complicated system, and unless you want to make a study of the Enneagram, you're not going to get it all that quick. So the Enneagram Made Easy uses cartoons, and it gives a lot of information on each type, but it does it in such a simple way that you can kind of compare and contrast, and you can get an easy, quick sense of what the Enneagram is all about, and kind of a good, quick way to get working knowledge of the model. Then if you wanted to go deeper, The Wisdom of the Enneagram. The great thing about this book is, first of all, it's really popular. Don Riso and Russ Hudson are two of the most esteemed teachers in the world of the Enneagram. They're the ones that actually wrote the Enneagram assessment that you'll be taking, or that you've already taken. And they call this the complete guide to psychological and spiritual growth in the 9 personality types. So what they've done in this book, The Wisdom of the Enneagram, is for each type there's 9 levels of development, and they kind of show you what the 9 levels of development are, so you can see your path, and it's pretty clear and easy to read. Now, I have not read this last book by Sandra Maitrey, but she goes into the spiritual information pretty quickly. So she starts right off with the way the spiritual teachers will work with the Enneagram. So for those of you who are on a spiritual journey and you really kind of want to get right to the spiritual aspects of it, this is a great book. So this is the end of our second class. Now we're probably going to have other classes, maybe dive in a little bit deeper into some of the types so that you can get a little bit more. But keep in mind that there are so many books out there, and you can go on to YouTube and listen to interviews and see different types being interviewed, so you can kind of see what they look like and how they think. So there's a lot out there to learn depending on how much you want to learn. But I would say the most important thing to learn first is kind of what is your type and what's the path for your type, because that's the most useful information. You can apply it to your own personal growth. So have fun with this, and again, always reach out and contact me if you want to talk about it anymore, or if you have any questions, or if you're feeling stuck or you're not sure what type you are, and we can talk about it more.